Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I'll just reiterate my question, I guess, is hopefully everybody can see it and they see something that doesn't exactly look like what they're using today. It's a much more modern and intuitive version, and we're going to talk about that extensively. And one of the phrases that we have, an acronym here, MSM, or Mobile Screen Modernization, we're going to say that a couple of times as well as a few others, but we will try to clarify and spell out exactly what we're talking about in the presentation here. So just as was mentioned by Lisa, we've got the presenters who are identified or shown on the screen. Our agenda is on the bottom right. We're going to have a Q&A to break up our sections because the first part of the webinar is going to be educationally focused on our modernization enhancement pack, our MSM enhancement pack specifically. We're going to pause for a Q&A to break that up, and then we're going to talk about advanced automation, how you would supplement barcode scanning with advanced features if it's applicable for you. And it's really just not an in-depth technical dive. It's something to give you a taste of what you could potentially do to further optimize your warehouse, distribution, and production application. But as a lot of people know, we've got a lot of our existing customers on here. We're BCC Distribution, and we've been around for over 20 years. And we've got expertise specifically with barcode scanning and SAP integration. We are an SAP partner. We're a partner with Avanti, who is participating today, with several OEM manufacturers of the equipment, as well as certified SAP solutions. But as I mentioned just a minute ago, this is kind of the progression. We wanted to create a ladder to kind of show you how you can progress up that ladder to advance your inventory control and process improvement efficiencies. But this was kind of what we came up with. On the far left, you'll see a manual process. What we're really honing in on today is the barcoding and taking barcoding and advancing that with both modernization to capture your as-is investment with your ITSmobile-based solution and make that more modern and have a better look and feel, and really just to get the most out of it with minimal changes necessary. And then we're talking about some of the other pieces that supplement that take you to the next level. Voice, RFID, robotics driven by IoT, which is Internet of Things, or IIoT, which we'll talk about, and then potentially incorporation of AI as a part of that. But these are some of the highlights that we're going to talk about after we get through the mobile screen modernization piece. So right out of the gate, we see the screen actually on our screens that we're looking at, and it's going to be very different than your standard ITSmobile screen. We call this mobile screen modernization. It takes what you have and enhances it to be something much more intuitive, simple, sexier, easier to use, and it actually has some things that have been requested by our customers. What is it? It is a pre-configured software upgrade package that we have available today that is simply installed on the RF device, the client, the mobile device that you have, be it a 9300, 9400, a TC series, an Elo M50, an Intermec, or Honeywell CK65, whatever that device is. This is a client application that we install onto the device. It does not, as a part of our standard package deliverable, does not require access to your SAP box. You don't have to touch it. We don't have to make ABAP changes, which is a very important piece. But MSM enhancement package, some of the additional aspects of that is what that really means, because each word has a specific piece of this puzzle. So from a mobile standpoint, we're upgrading the design and optimizing it for mobile devices such as the guns, scanners, PDAs, tablets, vehicle-mounted terminals that you use today. We're upgrading those mobile devices. What we're upgrading is the screen or the page, the HTML screen generated by SAP ITSmobile and presented to the user via the RF device's Velocity web browser. That's the tool set that we're leveraging, the actual screen and how it's being rendered. The modernization piece is what you expect, what your users are asking for on the floor, what they'd like to see. It's the enhanced on-screen UI, or user interface, also known as user experience, using the Velocity JavaScript and CSS tool set that's available with what you have to match modern device interaction expectations. What do you expect when you pick up the device? How do you expect to work? Does it look like your phone? Does it look like SAP Fiori? Does it have a UI5 look and feel? That is the modernization aspect we're talking about. And then the enhancement specifically. These are the changes that we've built And we kind of did a teaser a couple of months ago about what was coming. But these are what's resulted from our customers that are participating today, as well as others that are requests that have come in to improve the overall user experience on the mobile device with ITS Mobile without changing the back-end system. We don't want to sacrifice performance. We don't want to have to touch the box. We just want to make a quick change to make it better. That's what this enhancement is. And it is a package. It's a software and services product, which includes deployment preparations, files, procedures, as well as support from BCC that we've developed, is available today, and it is delivered to you, our clients who are participating, so you can upload it onto your existing mobile device. And Casey, I may come to you in a few minutes when we get to this to talk about what that really means, because it's not as daunting as you may think. So what are these leading drivers and requests that we've gotten? So we kind of see it on the screen on the surface. It's relatively easy to capture it, but let me touch on a couple of the points, and we're going to walk through and demonstrate these one by one. So first off, it's the larger SAP login screen. We want to see a customer logo or an application specific logo that's unique to your business, and we want the screen to be bigger because seeing that user ID and password is extremely small and difficult. That's number one. Number two, a responsive screen. Why can't my screen automatically adjust like a UI5 screen to the device I'm using? There's 4 inches and 4.3s and 5s and 6-inch screens. It should automatically adjust. That's a biggie. A differentiated error sound. I've got my great transaction that Trainase app that BCC Distribution built that has all these intuitive call outs, a user interaction. I have to press a button to advance, but I really need to get that user involved besides looking at the screen because they're going automatic. So I'm going to force them with an audible tone that's different from my good scan versus bad scan. An on-screen keyboard that's optimized even beyond what you're used to today, and we'll talk about that. A quick launch or a hotkey for jumping in and out of our session without interrupting the SAP login or the data that we've captured. And then the overall improved look and feel, uniform button positioning. There's something called CTA or call to actions. What do you do next? The field that's highlighted, the button that you have to press. That's what this means. We've improved those to be more of what you're used to on your everyday device, but in the warehouse or production application. And then we've got some optional items that we'll touch on as well. But I'm going to get this moving because my goal is to really squeeze this into about 30 minutes and then talk about the advanced components for about another 15. But the first thing that we'll see, and I'm going to play it while I talk to it, which is automatic sizing to the screen size of the device or a responsive screen. So what you'll see on the right is the actual demonstration of that responsive screen. Normally, if I have a web browser for ITS Mobile, I have to go in and make changes to it to put it at 90%, 100%, 105, 110%. Why can't it just size automatically? That's what this package has been optimized for. Our standard package is focused on a traditional barcode scanner or a PDA or a tablet running in a portrait mode. So going between that 4-inch, 5-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch screen in portrait mode, it's going to automatically size, which is a great thing, especially when you have a blend of devices in your warehouse application. Now, one of the questions proactively we may get, so I'm going to cut it off at the pass, is we have an optional capability to be able to switch between a portrait and landscape mode, which is actually capturing our 16 by 20 or 8 by 40 landscapes. And this is really common if we have a tablet. We have a tablet we're walking around with, it's in our hand, it's in portrait mode, I've got a little hand bezel, but then I take it out, I flip it to landscape mode sideways, and then I snap it into a vehicle terminal. If the actual screen automatically is responsive to not only adjust to the size, but to maximize the buttons and screens, our optional capabilities has that and supports that as well. So the next piece, beyond just the responsiveness, is the actual first impression. What does the user see when they actually log in? Well, here you can see the user interface for the SAP login. That's where we're starting. You can see it's bigger. And I've got a grayed out version of what you're used to seeing on the left. It's much smaller and it's very difficult to blow up. But in this case, we've got a nice keyboard. We've got a fully used screen. We've got a logo in there. And then we've got a keyboard that actually makes the screen size just automatically. And then at the end of the video, you can see here's what our UI5 look and feel represents. We've got different color schemes. Our default color scheme is following a model for what SAP Fiori represents, which is the blue, the white, the light blue, and the grays. It's a clean look. It's very different than standard ITSmobile, and it has buttons that are utilized in headers and footers versus having the buttons on the screen that may or may not be covered by the keyboard, may or may not be the same size, may be out of position, may not be justified. We took that and put that into a footer bar. So if I need to back or clear or log off or post or confirm or continue, it's right there in the footer where I would normally expect it to be. So the actual look and feel of the transactions feels like it should. It looks good, it feels good, and it still does not sacrifice any of the performance that we expect, nor does it require any changes to our backend system. And as we have it designed today as a part of our standard package, it's using a light color theme. Optionally, we have the ability to be able to change that. We can use a dark, or we can change the color pattern entirely, but this is what we feel is most required and also flows with what SAP expects, because we're trying to keep those best practices in mind. So we talked about the responsiveness, we talked about the look and feel, the log on, a couple of important points that our customers have asked for that's a part of the standard package. The next piece is the keyboard optimization. So I'm going to hit the button, keep your eye focused on the keyboard. What you're going to see is it's sliding left to right, but your large clear buttons, your simple familiar interaction with how it moves, the light theme, and then we'll see the fonts. The fonts actually of the keyboard and the footer bars, the header bars, and the on-screen are all in SAP standard font. We're matching everything so it looks and feels as it's supposed to, and it's clear. What we've heard from a lot of users is that when they pop open ITSmobile, some of the fonts that they use, they look blurry. They're not blurry, it's just the font type that's used. So it's, again, another aspect that's subtle, but it's important because it's what people expect. As a part of the standard package, our keyboard has 4 different configurations. It has alpha, numeric, special characters, and function keys. It's easy to transition between them. It's easy to adjust. And if I kind of go back and pop into a certain part of this, you can see that in that grayed out area, there's an actual scan gun, and we're demonstrating it in a PDA device. In the scan gun, you have physical keys that are cursors that go up, down, left, right. We put that, Casey put that, who just walked out of the room, into our special characters to be able to allow us to advance, because this is applicable for both PDAs as well as traditional scan guns. So if we want to use that on-screen prompt versus the physical key, we can, but we're trying to look and flow and feel what they're used to with the devices. Additionally, there's one other aspect that John wanted to incorporate that I feel is a very good value, which are these function keys that I'm paused on right now. One of the biggest things with SAP screens, even though we can optimize it and only put the data that we need, is people always ask for, I need bigger buttons, I need bigger keys. Well, this is an XXL or extra, extra large version of the button keys, and it's just to give you an idea of what can be done. Maybe it's a function key, maybe it's a cursor, maybe it's a quick launch to a hotkey to another application. But there are a lot of things that we can do optionally that's a special action as a part of this keyboard. But from a standard default package perspective, we've optimized the actual keyboards using the velocity keyboard to make it flow, work, go up and down very effectively for what you used to do with entering POs, quantities, delivery numbers, orders, productions, etc. John, Donna, Greg, anything you'd like to add to that? Looks great.
Yeah, great summary, Nick. I think you covered it pretty well.
All right. Thanks, Greg. So the next aspect we're going to talk about, which is something that we've included, Velocity, I believe, calls this an intent. We call it a shortcut. Some people call it a hotkey, but you can see that yellow arrow. So I'm going to hit the actual button here. So there's going to be a video of a bin-to-bin transaction that's going to progress. There's going to be data entry. We're going to have it scanned. But what you can see is a normal bin-to-bin transaction happening here. But what happens is if I'm doing multiple orders, wave picking, or if I'm counting items that I'm moving between bins or locations, I might lose count. So this button gives us a hotkey function to jump into another application. In this case, I'm counting the items that I'm picking. I'm putting it onto my cart. Once I get the total for which I'm counting, then I'm going to jump back into my application. I've got my total. I jump back into my bin to bin. How many am I moving? I enter 15. I've lost no data. It's a really nice feature that's embedded within the application. It's, again, one of those things where normally use that bottom right hamburger looking icon to toggle between applications, but a hotkey can let us jump right into that. It's a really nice feature. It's included with the application of this enhancement pack upgrade. So now we're going to walk through, and we have a lot of customers in this presentation today that have our existing software transactions. Some of them have IM or inventory management. Some of them have WM, which is warehouse management. We're going to show both. We're going to show an IM transaction and a storage location move, and we're going to show a bin to bin. So I'm going to cycle through this one, but I want you to keep your ears open. I hope you have your volume turned up to listen to the transaction, because it's going to differentiate between a good scan and a bad scan. So again, we're simulating this on a PDA device with our optimized keyboard. It's our standard transaction out of the box in our namespace for our storage location move. So we scan a storage location, and then we scan a material. So let me pause it, if I can pause it in time. Pause. So many things go into this. What's important for everyone to understand is that the package includes this capability to differentiate a bad scan versus a good scan. What we've already built inherently as a part of our best practice methodology for transactions is we validate at each field. We scan. If it's good, we progress to the next field. If it's wrong, we give a user prompt. That user prompt is shown on the screen. And then we force them to not be able to continue, because what happens, we all know, users start scanning, they scan, and they never look. They don't listen, they don't look, they just keep going until they think they're done, and then look at their screen and they're like, oh, what happened? Our transactions by default force them to actually interact, but this just gives that extra layer of identification. We use it in several warehouses that are loud, and it really is irritating, and it really helps them understand that I did something wrong. I scanned the bin instead of the material, or I scanned the wrong material, etc. So it's a really nice demonstration of that transaction. This is the next one, which is similar scenario, but instead of an IM S-log to S-log, I'm just doing a bin-to-bin LTL1 transaction. So I scan or enter my storage bin. In this case, we're actually entering it, so you can see the context of using the on-screen keyboard. So my barcode's damaged and I have to physically key it in. So I entered it, validated the data, scanned my material, it validated, that's good. Now I want to enter a quantity to be moved. So pretty straightforward transaction, but really this is demonstrating a normal transaction for bin to bin that you would see, and how the UI5 look and feel of the actual enhancement pack for this mobile screen modernization looks. I just ran through a transaction. Now I'm going to run through another one, but I'm going to do it wrong. Another instance where you can actually hear that differentiated thing. So we see the good version, and then we see the other version where we're traditionally scanning, just to slow us down and help us identify if we're doing something right or wrong. But that's an IM transaction. WM transaction for bin-to-bin movement. It's very common in almost every application, but you can actually see that transaction run through and see exactly what the fields look like. The justification is clean, the screen is clean. It just further helps the user be able to be more easily trained, so they don't have to be an SAP expert, but they can actually see and run the transactions effectively. So those were a lot of the highlights, and we went through them really quick, but that's the point, is because it's all part of our existing package. So those components are included as our standard deliverable. And how we deploy that, that's our question. How do I get this to work, Nick? How do I actually get this into our system? And Donna, I may validate this information with you in case there's anything you wanted to add to it, as well as Casey for the client component. But from our side, BCC distribution, you tell me, Nick, yeah, I want this. I want to add it to my device right away. What do I expect? Well, with the package, we do the preparation and a kickoff meeting just to make sure that we have our bases covered for your TrainASAP application, as well as the devices that you're using, so we can get everything prepared. We have our standard documentation procedure. We've got a tamper-proof secure file package preparation that we do, and we provide this via remote software delivery. We send this to you, and the host profile is updated and delivered by our staging team. So that file that we're sending, it's what our experts, the people who know the transactions, the devices, velocity, they're getting this package ready for you. And also we are providing, as a part of that delivery, support for 12 months as a part of the package in case there are any issues with what we delivered. That's what we do. What do you have to do as a part of our standard deliverable? Well, you have to actually take what we deliver to you, and then you have to load that file onto your RF device. Not SAP, not the system, not your box, but the device itself. Casey, you want to kind of talk about anything about that specifically?
So this file will just reside on the device as they have a file now that's already there. It just replaces that current file they have. So there's nothing additional.
Nothing additional. Very good. How about you, Donna? Anything you want to add to that?
No, but like Casey said, you want to just add that. We can have the option to add that. So if you wanted to have those side by side while you're running them together, or you can also just load that to just a few devices to do a test run and not deploy it to your whole device all at once.
That's a good point. And I think I saw a question come through, though I'm not looking at it on my screen right this second. But so you're saying that I can actually run this in this mobile screen modernization package in parallel to my existing package I have for my standard ITS deployment? I can run those together?
Absolutely.
Okay. Interesting. Good stuff. All right. So that was our standard package deliverable for this mobile screen modernization enhancement pack. Now, what we may get as far as questions, because some people like to make changes to their system, there are a deep list of optional customizations that can be made. So for the log on screen, for example, we can turn on and off the actual log on screen features or fields. So if we want to get rid of some of those, if it's just display only, maybe we want to get rid of it. Maybe we want to add something to it. We have that ability. If we want to change that shortcut or that hotkey to a different application, like ITSmobile, I'm sorry, an email or something like that, or GPS or camera, we can do that. All right. Some of the other things that we can do, I mentioned it when we showed the keyboard and those extra large virtual keyboard buttons that we had there. So in addition to making those something that's specific to a keyboard, like a function key, we could actually make those application shortcuts. Donna, we're limited to having one hotkey or shortcut on our actual main menu. At that bottom bar that we showed where we launched into the calculator, we're limited to just one in that scenario, correct?
Yes, that's the functionality is only allowing one action key at that place, but we can add action keys to a keyboard, and so we could have multiple different call to actions there.
Perfect. Wonderful. Some other things that we can do in scenarios where we have multilingual applications where it might be English here, Spanish there, might have Chinese. We see some of our customers who are running Portuguese. If we wanted to actually remove the text, so you can see on the right bottom side of the image, we see back and clear. We can have an arrow that's a back button or a clear button that's like an eraser. So if we want to remove text and put in icons, which is pretty common, like an enter key would be a down and over, we can do that too. If we wanted to actually set up the portrait versus landscape, we talked about that. If we wanted to actually set this up so the orientation was driven by the device itself, so based upon the device, it automatically identifies if it's portrait or landscape mode, we can have that. You can see in the picture that there's custom defined color themes. If we want to do light, dark, we want it to look like the Sexy Fiore screen, we can do that too. There's a lot we can do with the customization, but the goal is really to create a standardized template, but it looks and feels and operates more intuitively. But if we wanted to really take it to the next level, we could. Another one, which we didn't showcase because we had some other transactions we were going to show, but we're a little limited on time. We can add dynamic images and graphics based upon the SAP material master data. So if we pull up a material, we can show an image of that material to represent and really be a quick indicator for what they should be looking for specifically. That's another feature that we've been asked for, but it's a little bit more unique because it requires customer setup side as well as the package itself. If you don't like the error sound that we have, which is an SAP driven sound, that is the default, which is a very distinguishable sound. If you wanted to have something else, that can be changed. Another aspect is what we're focused on in the presentation today is the standard package, this enhancement package that we have that's going to work for our TrainASAP customers. If you have our transactions that we delivered, this is going to work for you. If you have a blend, or potentially we've just provided you with enhancements, or you're just looking at this because you have standard SAP WM RF transactions, or you have something custom built by another partner or entity, that would be optional because we don't know the framework or the structure or the methodology in which the transactions were built. So we may see some different results in how the screens are rendered. So that requires a little bit more of a what we call a gap analysis and additional services to match the two things together to maximize the modernization of the screens. And then obviously the advanced stuff, what we're about to jump into, which is the advanced automation like voice integration enablement, single sign-on, and some other components. So that's our standard deliverable, is to give you the package and let you stage the device with that file to update it just like you're getting it back from depot after a repair or something like that. The other options, which are optional, are customer-specific staging and deployment services. So if you use BCC to stage your devices and you just want to send them in to us, we have a program for that. If you want us to train your team on how to do this because you're not comfortable and you're not familiar with how to actually load this, what's the file type?
It's just the deployment, the WLDP file.
WLDP, yeah. So if you're not familiar with that process of how to load that file for velocity onto your devices, we can provide skill transfer training services to your subject matter expert IT team that's responsible for the devices to help you with that, to really build you the ability to be able to do it yourselves. If you've got an MDM solution like SODI, or you've got something from the neurons of Orvanti that you wanted to leverage to actually manage your devices and deploy this out automatically to the entire field or fleet that you have, that's also an option. Or there's a scan sheet option. One of the interesting pieces about this, I talked about the advanced automation and the additional customizations that you can do, and I've talked about what we do based upon what all of our customers are asking for and what we think suits the application to maintain its current integrity and performance. If you say, I want to take this tool set that you have and I want to turn it up a notch and I want to do all these things myself, great, not a problem. We can provide advanced training on the actual modernization tool set, but we require or mandate that our customers have experience with JavaScript and CSS to be able to do this, because that's a skill set in itself to be able to understand, to be able to use this UI5 tool set to make those changes. If you remember the first slide we had where we had manual, barcoding, voice, RFID, IoT, robotics, these are additional products that we are either have or will have very soon to supplement the process. And I say supplement specifically because if I have barcode scanning as my foundation for my system, the additional capabilities to do things like RFID would be a value add or an ROI for specific use case scenarios, not necessarily being the step that I jump to right away. If I go from manual to RFID for everything, that necessarily isn't the best approach. So all these advanced automation tool sets are designed to build upon what you've already done with barcoding. So I said that in one bullet here, so it's designed to supplement. So our RFID solution that we will be launching and showcasing specifically at Sapphire in June this year, where we are exhibiting and we'll be talking about and having some materials to actually showcase and present. So it's utilizing REST APIs, which is a really nice lightweight tool set that will be supported with both current SAP applications, ECC6, as well as Suite on HANA, as well as S/4HANA, as well as capabilities to integrate with future applications of SAP running not only private cloud, but public cloud instances. So that's what this is designed for, is to be something more agnostic, but also capable to supplement the system. So what we actually are working to achieve, which we've done, we wanted to demonstrate, but we just don't have enough time today. This will be its own presentation, is a fixed RFID system. What do I mean by fixed? That's a portal, a bottleneck, going through with a forklift to walls and a door, and you're driving a pallet in and being able to capture that, or a tool parts crib, being able to walk through a bottleneck of a door, taking materials in and out and tracking that. And then that information being populated and then propagated and synchronized with SAP to update the material information accordingly. So there's the fixed approach of having a portal where people, vehicles, materials are actually going through it. Another one that we are simultaneously working on is a mobile RFID solution. Again, to supplement barcode, what you see in the picture, an RFID handheld scanner like that has the ability to both read RFID as well as scan a barcode. But if I have a pallet or a case that's full of actual materials that I can't see and I don't want to bust it open, RFID is a great use case for that, because then I can actually count all the materials, capture all the actual EPCs that are in that box without physically opening it. And I can do it very, very fast. So we're working to do this for cycle counting, because that's a high ROI function within a warehouse application. And then encoding RFID. I don't want to confuse people per se, but when people say, I want to print an RFID tag, what they really mean is I want to print and encode. I want to actually commission a tag. I want to create data in SAP, put that both onto the physical human readable of the label, whether it's human readable or barcode, and then embed that into the actual chip of the RFID tag. That's what we mean by encode. And that is something we want to drive through SAP GUI, or the RFID scanner and the transaction that we're running specifically. Just like we would today, we're treating this as no different than printing a barcode. We are just driving data to a field or an object that is an RFID tag, and we are treating it as such. Our quick print solution is excellent for doing on-demand printing of labels, as well as the ability to print integrated as a part of a transaction, like doing a goods receipt and then printing a label as a goods receipt. Well, we also will have the ability to encode an RFID tag as a part of that receipt process to track the tags through the rest of the process. And again, this is its own dedicated presentation, but it is a product and a solution to supplement barcoding that we have, and we will be showcasing very shortly. The next one, which kind of goes back to the question that was asked a few minutes ago, which was, what about a true UI5 Fiori version or a BTP supported application for mobile devices that is going to work with SAP's current business practice of using BTP and APIs to tie in, as well as potentially with the cloud? So right now, BCC Distribution has a store and forward solution. It's a UI5 solution, and it actually uses a third-party tool set, because Fiori did not previously have offline capabilities several years ago. With that said, we are building a new version of our SAP Training SAP solution. So our RF scanning solution, same thing as console migrated to ITSmobile. ITSmobile migrated to our store and forward version. Now we are taking that store and forward version and moving into a native SAP Fiori approach. So it will be built on SAP MDK or Freestyle mobile guidelines using SAP OData services. We're going to use the same design approach that we do today. Our methodology is going to be SAP, mobility, barcode scanning, data collection and validation, as well as inventory control best practices. We're not going to do too much. We're not going to take a software-only perspective. We're going to do this from a equipment, user, process, and SAP best practices approach to make sure we do it correctly. And then again, it's designed to run natively on the mobile device and support both online and offline functionality. And there's a little bit more description there, but locally what we're going to do is we're going to synchronize the system with specific transactions and we're going to cache that onto a database on the device. And then we're going to have a process and procedure for reconciling data that we've collected offline when we come back online. And that could mean a couple of different things. It could mean walking back into Wi-Fi. It could mean dropping it into a cradle. It could mean a couple of different things. But our solution is moving into SAP Fiori for store and forward capability, aka online, offline. This is another product we will have ready and be showcasing at Sapphire in a couple of months. Additionally, the third one, before I get into voice and a couple of other pieces that I know were big draws here, is extended warehouse management. So as a lot of people know, EWM using ITSmobile today, it is a different architecture and has to be rebuilt because they're different transactions. So we are ourselves building more transactions for EWM using our current model. We're also following what our customers are telling us that they're going to do, which is transitioning from WM to EWM, transitioning from ECC to S/4HANA, and then WM to EWM as well, applicable to the private cloud edition, on-premise, hosted, PCE. That's what we're focused on at the moment for EWM. And then also having that REST API architecture for our TrainASAP solution. Again, this is something that we're going to showcase, but it all kind of ties together with trying to follow and keep pace with what both SAP says that they're going to do, but also, more importantly, what our customers are asking us and telling us they want to do, and trying to have a solution that addresses that need that SAP does not offer. So Greg, I'm going to actually turn it over to you for a minute for our last 3 slides before our final Q&A here. But again, just kind of reiterating, these are a couple of components. If you have barcoding in place today, beyond just the modernization, this is separate. This would be something that would supplement. You could do modernization too to get the good look and feel, but here are some other things you could do to further enable better efficiencies within your warehouse, production, or distribution environment.
Sure, Nick. Yeah.
Thank you just tell me when to advance the slide.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Thank you. Yeah, so Ivanti Speakeasy has actually been around for quite a few years, and it's actually been recently rebranded and enhanced for the most modern Android devices now. We now also refer to it as Velocity Voice, but everybody affectionately still remembers Speakeasy. And we're really excited with what BCC distribution has done with this, because you have actually already enabled several different transactions for voice interaction. And what you're seeing in the pictures there is people using traditional either handheld or wearable devices, already running our Velocity solution, already using the BCC distribution transactions. But what we're doing is we're just adding voice. So it's kind of like the manager on the shoulder. Somebody can just basically hear the instructions without having to stop and look at the screen every time. And then we'll add voice where voice makes sense as an input. So they can continue to scan barcodes. They can continue to, scan RFID tags. And then we just supplement that. We kind of talk about it as being voice as a peripheral. So it's still your application. It's still your existing device. But now you get to listen to what your instructions are. So if you're busy picking small parts or lifting heavy objects where you need 2 hands, you don't have to pick up the device and see what your next instruction is, because the instruction's in your ear. And you can do simple commands like say again to hear a previous command. You can ask for additional information. So maybe you need to ask for additional information that's on the screen. Again, it may have directed you to a location and you want to verify the item ID. You can ask that question and it'll just respond with other information on the screen so that you don't have to pick that device back up again or try to rotate your wrist if you're using a wearable. So it's a pretty exciting, and it's a very low impact integration into your application. Again, we talk about voice where voice makes sense. So you don't have to add a whole new device into your organization in order to be able to use voice. It's going to run in your existing equipment that's already running the Velocity client.
Yeah, great points, Greg. So I guess I'll ask Donna, the question is, do we have this capability with our SAP ITSmobile transactions for WM as it is today? We have the ability to be able to activate this for our customers that are running these transactions. Have we done this?
Yes, absolutely. We're able to do a count transaction very quickly, got that up and working, and it's very, like Greg said, it's like a peripheral and very tightly integrated with the Velocity console.
Wonderful. Okay.
And
Great.
as we talk about this, Nick, I don't know if we're going to do a Q&A later, but there are
Yes,
a couple
sir.
of questions popping up. So you want to address them now or take them?
We'll take those at the end just to make sure we get through the core material in case some people have hard stops.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I'll jump to the mobile device management aspect for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Wavelength first and Ivanti naturally has been in the mobile device management space for many, many years. And you may have heard the Neurons theme, which describes a lot of different products within the Ivanti platform. And so we have what we call Neurons for MDM. It was formerly known as Mobile Iron. It's integrated with several other of the UEM and security products offered by Ivanti. And it's really a world-class MDM solution that's designed for your rugged devices in the warehouse, your cell phones, your tablets, your desktops in the carpeted space. And we feel like it's a great companion to things like the Velocity product. There's some questions earlier about, well, how do I update my devices? Can I only update some of my devices? Can I have two applications at one time? All those questions can be addressed by using an MDM, which can selectively pick certain devices to upgrade and certain to not upgrade yet. You can do a phased rollout. You can do a sweeping rollout. And with the advances that have taken place in Android as an operating system, there's a lot of upgrades that have to take place on the device other than just our application. And so having a good feature-rich MDM helps you do OS updates. It helps you deploy new applications. It helps you restrict applications that you think are possibly at risk or a distraction to the end users. You can basically lock down the user interface in kind of a kiosk mode so that they only see the applications that you want them to have access to. And we can integrate that into Velocity. So we talked about the launcher in Velocity. You can have a launcher take you back to the UI real quickly to do multiple different applications. So if there are different things that you need on your device, you can kind of pop out of Velocity to go back to the UI that's got a menu of different things they can get to if they need more than just a calculator, more than just push to talk. So it's really a natural companion to the overall user experience when you're putting Velocity on your devices.
Yeah, it's a great tool set for our clients. Some of them, many of them actually on the meeting today that have tens or hundreds of devices spread throughout the country or out the world to be able to deploy the mobile screen modernization solution and package that we have, as well as manage them on a day-to-day kind of basis, as well as troubleshooting and so forth. But this is its own presentation for sure, but we're just trying to give people some insight as to what's out there to support them. So we got one more piece, which also it could be its own presentation and then break down into multiple presentations, but we wanted to showcase this as well for our last couple of minutes, which is the IoT or the Internet of Things. But tell us a little bit about what you guys refer to as the industrial Internet of Things capabilities that kind of supplement far beyond barcoding, voice, et cetera.
Absolutely. So, IoT has definitely reached the supply chain and the warehouse and distribution space and even transportation. And there's all kinds of different information that's available to us in that overall, environment, if you will. Whether it's a temperature sensor on a device, whether it's an automatic door opener on your dock doors, whether it's a camera system where you need to kick in a camera to collect some information on activities or proof of delivery or anything like that. And so what we've done is we basically treated our Velocity client, which you're using to interface to SAP, we basically treated it as just one more endpoint in your IoT infrastructure. And then we have a platform which includes an MQTT broker for communications between all these different devices, as well as two different versions of kind of low code, no code logic development tools, okay, along with a database and a dashboard to kind of give you a background of what's going on. And that whole platform allows you to access information on the Velocity client for the benefit of the end user, or presenting information from the Velocity client back to your IoT infrastructure. I was trained years ago on, Allen Bradley PLCs, and everything was wired connections and, hardwired sensors and things like that. And there's so many really powerful IoT devices now that are designed for industrial applications that this is really the new way of tying all those pieces together. And so, information as you're receiving product, that you hit an environmental sensor that says, hey, this particular device was either out of the acceptable range of humidity or temperature, and letting somebody know as they're receiving the product, hey, I got to quarantine that product because I don't want to receive it. It's been compromised. Or, again, proof of delivery. So, you want to be able to tie to a delivery that pallet was good as it was going onto the truck. And so you can literally trigger a camera that takes a little video of you putting a properly shrink wrapped, undamaged pallet onto a truck, and you can tie that in, to your order data and whatnot for your customers. So there's the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, there is a tremendous amount here, and there's a couple that we wanted to emphasize for our customers. Obviously, the autonomous mobile robots is something that's pretty sexy because of some of the warehouses that are actually supplementing their physical workforce with the robots that are actually doing some of the picking and automation and actually moving it to shipping and packing areas. But beyond that, there are smaller versions of IoT that also this solution offers that might fit their exact need today. And a couple examples that we just wanted to include in that, which is a part of this solution. It's a smaller scaled capability, but it's also important, which is the use of just, we have our RF scanner, we're doing a receipts, or actually we're processing returns, and we get damaged products. Can we have the ability to capture that via our camera and then log that information? And how does that actually get synchronized, updated, logged for audit purposes as a part of the actual transaction process? So something that may or may not be tied directly into SAP, but might supplement it for reference purposes. And then the same thing for the forms use for, we've got some people on here I know that are doing preventative maintenance. So if they're actually running an SAP transaction, but they got to do a hotkey over to a form, which is basically something that's not necessarily tying into SAP, but there's an issue with the machine and they have to capture that information, or they're doing basic time tracking to log how much time they're actually doing, and then they're taking that information, propagating it into an actual transaction that they're running. So it's a little kind of in that line between IoT as well as adding some advanced automation to the existing system as is, that might be small scale to really kind of fit some immediate needs. That what the whole purpose of this conversation is, these are SAP people that are using SAP businesses. So their operations and SAP does not support this capability, but they have a need for it because there's a problem, there's a pain point, or there's an ROI. So the IoT solution and capabilities really has a deep portfolio of what it can do to potentially augment barcoding or voice or RFID to go far beyond that, to address the specific use case that any one of our customers may have who are in the chemicals industry, the manufacturing, food and beverage, aerospace, et cetera.
That's right. Yeah. And that's one of the exciting use cases that we built for the IoT platform is digital forms. And you wouldn't normally think of digital forms as being an IoT application, but the fact that we can take a picture of something, pop up a quick form, grab some order data and some location data out of the Velocity client that we've already collected, so the end user doesn't have to re-enter data, and then just submit it and send somebody an email and say, hey, go down to location XYZ and examine this part. Here's a picture of what you're looking for. And all that takes place automatically in the background with just a tap of a key on the device is very powerful.
Yeah, a lot, probably half of the participants today do some form of quality inspection for weapons products, et cetera. So this could be extremely valuable to learn more about that. But yeah, I think we've kind of hit the end of our time, and I know we've got some questions, maybe some people that need to drop, but I'd definitely like to turn it over to Lisa to answer some of those questions before people have to run. Lisa, do you have those queued up for us so we can talk about?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. One of the questions is they have interest in voice for maintenance. Do we have any experience with that?
Yeah, so that's one of the new kind of frontiers for voice. I think a lot of people are looking at that, and it really makes a lot of sense. And again, you may not have a maintenance module in your SAP system, so maybe that's attaching to another web server, but we can certainly support that. And it's really done pretty much the same way that we've already done the SAP transactions. So yeah, absolutely.
Great, thanks, Greg. And then does this new MSM device deployment file overwrite our current or existing velocity file?
Yeah, it's a great question. We were talking about that earlier, and it really depends on everybody's appetite for change, right? So it may very well be that during your testing phase, you want to have both applications running at the same time on the same device, and we can support that. And, for your new users, or maybe the people who aren't a super user that aren't in the testing process, you can give them just a single application, either the before or the after. And again, you're going to address that using your MDM. So you're going to say, I want these 10 devices to be test devices. We're going to give people a choice. I want these 10 devices to be the legacy users, and I want these 10 devices to be the new application.
Nick, were you going to add something on that?
Your
bubbles lit up.
Yeah, no, Greg is crushing it here. So
Okay,
no, we're good.
Yeah, perfect. And then does this work on Honeywell terminals? So I'll go ahead and field that question. Yes, this will work on Honeywell, Zebra, Elo, really the gambit of the rugged RF mobile scanning terminals. So yes. Okay. And then this kind of hit on what Greg and Nick, you guys just touched on, but just a little bit more specific of a question. Can we upgrade 1 or 2 RF devices with this modernization and while still using the standard velocity on my other terminals? It sounded like that answer is yes.
Yep, absolutely. We can do device targeting through the MDM, or as Nick had mentioned earlier in the presentation, you can actually do scan to configure directly through what we call the velocity console. And so you could take a single device, scan a barcode, have that project delivered to that one device, and that one device would be the only one with the new project on it until others scan that same barcode.
Awesome. And then our last question here is it priced per transaction?
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I wish it was.
So that is a no. So if you have, it's not based upon the number of transactions you have. It's not based upon the number of devices that you have. It is a one-time package, and it allows you to be able to deploy it on the devices that you want. So if you've got 100 scanners running 20 transactions, it's the same as if you have 1 scanner running 1 transaction.
Perfect. Appreciate
And it's
that.
a one-time perpetual fee. Again, that's for our standard deliverable. If we're looking for some advanced deliverables regarding additional customizations or additional deployment options of using BCC services or an MDM-based solution or skill transfer training, those services will be in addition. And in some cases, we need to do a gap analysis just to make sure we understand the software that you're using, potential ABAP changes because you're running standard SAP WM transactions, for example. But for normal circumstances, it's a one-time fee, a one-time delivery, and then you can use that as you see fit within your enterprise.
Right. Thank you, Nick. And if there are any questions after this, please reach out to your BCCD rep or Nick or myself, and we can get those answered in the meantime.